You want to know what rock bottom looks like? It's sitting in your black Charger at 3 a.m. on Christmas morning, watching your wife through another man's kitchen window as she wraps presents with money that was supposed to keep your diabetic daughter alive. 3 months of 16-hour shifts at the steel mill, every blister on my hands counted, every dollar earned with blood and sweat. Also, some construction company owner's spoiled brats could have the latest PlayStation, while my Emma rations her insulin. But here's the thing about rock bottom. It gives you a solid foundation to build your revenge on. And Sarah had no idea that the broken man who used to beg her to come back died the moment I watched her choose someone else's family over our daughter's life. The Marcus Kane sitting in that car wasn't the same guy who married her 5 years ago. Prison teaches you patience. The Marines teach you precision. And watching your kid suffer because of someone else's selfishness, that teaches you that some people deserve exactly what's coming to them. I should have known something was wrong when I came home from my double shift and found Sarah sitting at our kitchen table, staring at her phone like it contained the secrets of the universe. "Hey, babe," I said, dropping my hard hat on the counter. "How was your day?" She looked up, and I swear her face went 3 shades paler. "Oh, hi, Marcus. You're home early." "Early? It's past midnight, Sarah. I've been at the mill since 6 this morning." I opened the fridge, grabbed a beer, and noticed she was still in her day clothes. Full makeup, hair done. "You going somewhere?" No, just couldn't sleep." I popped the beer and leaned against the counter, studying her. After 5 years of marriage, you learn to read the signs. The way she kept glancing at her phone, the way her fingers drummed against the table, the way she couldn't quite meet my eyes. "Sarah, what's going on?" "Nothing's going on. Why would you think something's going on?" "Because you're acting like a kid who got caught with her hand in the cookie jar." I took a long pull of my beer. "And because you've been weird all week." She stood up abruptly, shoving her phone in her back pocket. "I'm going to bed." "Sarah." She stopped, but didn't turn around. "We need to talk about Emma's medication. Dr. Peterson called today. Her prescription's ready, but insurance only covers 60%. We're looking at about $400 out of pocket." Her shoulders tensed. "Can't we just put it on the credit card?" "The credit card's maxed out from her last hospital stay, remember? That's why we've been saving in the Christmas account. Speaking of which, I need to transfer some money tomorrow." "You can't." The words came out so fast, so panicked, that I almost dropped my beer. "What do you mean, I can't?" She turned around slowly, and I saw it then. The guilt written all over her face like a neon sign. "Sarah, what did you do?" "I can explain." "What did you do?" Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it automatically, and I saw her face crumble. "Give me the phone, Sarah. Marcus, please just let me explain." "Give me the goddamn phone!" She handed it over with shaking hands. The text was from someone named Derek. "The kids loved everything. You're amazing. Thank you for making their Christmas perfect." I scrolled up. Message after message. "Can you pick up the Xbox today? The bike shop closes at 6. You're the best stepmother they could ask for." Stepmother. "Who the hell is Derek?" Sarah collapsed back into her chair like her strings had been cut. "He's my ex-husband." "Your ex-husband, the one you said was dead?" "I never said he was dead. I said he was dead to me. There's a difference." I set the phone down very carefully on the counter. When I'd done 6 months in county for putting my fist through a wall during my last relationship, the anger management counselor had taught me breathing techniques. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Count to 10. I made it to 3. "Sarah, please tell me you didn't spend our Christmas money on your ex-husband's kids." The silence stretched between us like a loaded gun. How much? My voice was barely above a whisper. Marcus, how much? All of it. I laughed, actually laughed, because sometimes when life punches you in the face, the only response that makes sense is insanity. All of it, $3,847. Gone. On kids that aren't even yours. They feel like mine, she whispered. Derek lets me see them on weekends. They call me Sarah Mom. When I'm with them, I feel like I matter. You matter here, Sarah. Emma thinks you hung the moon. Emma's not my daughter. The words hit me like a physical blow. I'd brought Emma into this marriage when she was 3 years old. Sarah had been there for her first day of school, her first lost tooth, her diabetes diagnosis. We'd been a family, or so I thought. Get out, I said. Marcus, please. Get out. Go to your ex-husband's house. Go be Sarah Mom to his kids. But you're not sleeping in my bed tonight. She stood up, tears streaming down her face. I love you, Marcus. You have to believe that. No, Sarah. You love the idea of being needed. There's a difference. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door, then stopped. What are you going to do? I took another sip of my beer and smiled. Not a nice smile. The kind of smile that used to make enemy combatants in Afghanistan reconsider their life choices. I'm going to give myself a Christmas present. Sarah came crawling back 3 days later, of course. I was in the garage, working on the Charger's engine, when I heard her car pull into the driveway. Through the window, I watched her sit in her Honda for a full 5 minutes, probably working up the courage to face me. The front door opened and closed. Footsteps across the hardwood. Then her voice, small and scared. Marcus, are you home? I kept working on the carburetor, let her sweat. Marcus, I know you're here. Your truck's in the driveway. More footsteps, getting closer. I brought Emma's medication. Her voice was right behind me now. I sold my wedding ring. That got my attention. I straightened up, wiping my hands on a shop rag, and turned around. Sarah stood in the doorway, still in yesterday's clothes, mascara streaked down her cheeks. She held up a small pharmacy bag like a peace offering. You sold your wedding ring for Emma's medication. She nodded. But you couldn't sell it 3 days ago to avoid spending our Christmas money on another man's kids. Her face crumpled. I wasn't thinking clearly. Derek, he said if I didn't help with Christmas, he'd cut off my visitation. He said the kids would think I didn't love them anymore. So you chose them over Emma. No, that's not. I thought we could figure something else out. I thought maybe your boss would give you an advance, or we could borrow from your sister. My sister who's working 3 jobs to keep her own kids fed, that sister? Sarah started crying harder. I messed up, okay? I know I messed up. But Derek, he's very persuasive. Something in the way she said it made me look at her more closely. The smeared makeup wasn't just from crying. There was a bruise on her left wrist, barely visible under her sleeve. Sarah, did Derek hurt you? She pulled her sleeve down quickly. No, of course not. He would never. Show me your wrist. Marcus, you're being paranoid. I crossed the garage in 2 steps and gently took her arm. She flinched but didn't pull away. I pushed up her sleeve and saw finger-shaped bruises, fresh and dark purple. He grabbed you. It wasn't like that. We were just talking and I was trying to leave and he... He what, Sarah? He what? He said I owed him, that after everything he'd done for me, the least I could do was make sure his kids had a good Christmas. Her voice got smaller. He said if I really loved them, I'd prove it. I let go of her arm and stepped back, my mind racing. This wasn't just about the money anymore. This Derek asshole was manipulating my wife, probably playing some sick psychological game. Where does he live? Marcus, no, you can't. You'll go to prison again, and then what happens to Emma? She was right, of course. But that didn't stop the part of my brain that was calculating drive times and planning approaches. Tell me about Derek. What do you mean? I mean, tell me about him. What's his story? How did you two meet? What does he do for work? Sarah sat down on my workbench, looking exhausted. We met in college, got married right after graduation. He owns a construction company now, Kane Brothers Construction. Kane? Like our last name? No, like his last name. I kept it when we got married because I thought it sounded professional. She looked at me with something like hope. I took your name when we got married because I wanted a fresh start, but not fresh enough to cut ties with your ex. The hope died in her eyes. He contacted me about 6 months ago, said his kids needed a mother figure, and would I consider spending time with them, just as friends. And you believed that? I wanted to believe it. Marcus, you don't understand what it's like to want children and not be able to have them. When Derek offered me a chance to be part of his kids' lives, you jumped at it. Wouldn't you? If some woman offered to let you be a father to her kids, wouldn't you at least consider it? I thought about Emma, how much I loved being her dad, how fierce my need to protect her was. Yeah, I admitted. I probably would. Derek seemed different from how he was when we were married. More mature, more stable. He said he'd learned from his mistakes. What mistakes? Sarah got quiet again. He used to have a temper, and he wasn't good with money. Always had some get-rich-quick scheme that never worked out. But now he owns a construction company, a successful one. He drives a BMW, lives in a big house in Riverside Heights. The kids go to private school. Something didn't add up. Sarah, if Derek's so successful, why did he need you to buy his kids Christmas presents? She stared at me like I'd just asked her to solve quantum physics. I don't know. He said money was tight because of the holidays. Money was tight, so he asked his ex-wife to spend her current husband's money on his kids' Christmas presents. When I put it like that, it sounded even more ridiculous. You think he played me? I think Derek is a manipulative asshole who saw you coming from a mile away. I grabbed my phone off the workbench. What's his company called again? Kane Brothers Construction. Marcus, what are you doing? I was already Googling. Derek's company website popped up immediately. Professional photos, glowing testimonials, recent projects worth millions of dollars. And there was Derek himself, grinning at the camera in an expensive suit, standing next to a brand-new BMW. I showed Sarah the screen. This looked like a man who needs his ex-wife to buy his kids Christmas presents? Her face went white. Oh my God. Yeah, oh my God. I pocketed my phone and grabbed my keys. I'm going for a drive. Marcus, where are you going? To see Emma. She's been asking when you're coming home. What should I tell Derek? He's been texting me all morning. I stopped at the garage door and looked back at her. Sarah sat hunched over on my workbench, looking small and broken and used. Tell Derek that Marcus Kane wants to meet him. Emma was in the pediatric ward when I got to the hospital, hooked up to an IV and looking smaller than any 7-year-old should. Her face lit up when she saw me walk into the room. Daddy! You came back! Of course I came back, kiddo. How are you feeling? Better. The medicine makes me feel sleepy, but not sick anymore. She looked past me toward the door. Where's Sarah? This was the part I'd been dreading. Sarah's at home, sweetheart. She'll come see you soon. Is she mad at me? What? No, Emma, why would Sarah be mad at you? Because I got sick again. Because the medicine costs so much money. Her lower lip started to tremble. I heard you and Sarah fighting about the money. I sat down on the edge of her hospital bed and pulled her into a hug. Emma, listen to me. You are not responsible for being sick. Diabetes isn't your fault. And you are never, ever a burden to me or Sarah. Do you understand? She nodded against my shoulder, but I could feel her tears soaking through my shirt. Tell you what, I said. When you get out of here, we're going to do something special. Just you and me. Like what? Like maybe take a trip to see Grandma in Florida. Would you like that? Emma pulled back to look at me. Can Sarah come too? The innocent question hit me like a punch to the gut. Emma loved Sarah, had always seen her as a mother figure, and Sarah had thrown that away for the chance to play house with her ex-husband's kids. We'll see, kiddo. My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. Derek wants to meet. Tonight at 7, Riverside Diner. I showed Emma the text. What do you think, Em? Should Daddy go meet this Derek guy? She couldn't read the whole message, but she saw the name. Who's Derek? Someone who's been causing problems for our family. Emma considered this with the seriousness that only children can bring to adult problems. Are you going to fight him? I'm going to talk to him. Will you win? I smiled and ruffled her hair. Daddy always wins, sweetheart. It just depends on what game we're playing. Riverside Diner was one of those old-school places with red vinyl booths and waitresses who called everyone Hun. I got there 15 minutes early, ordered coffee, and positioned myself where I could see the entrance. Old habits from the service, never let anyone approach from your blind side. Derek walked in at exactly 7 p.m., and I had to admit, Sarah hadn't been lying about his success. Expensive suit, even more expensive watch, and the kind of confidence that comes from always getting your way. He scanned the room like he owned it, spotted me, and walked over with his hand extended. Marcus Kane, Derek Hoffman, thanks for meeting me. I looked at his outstretched hand, but didn't take it. Sit down, Derek. His smile faltered slightly, but he slid into the booth across from me. Sarah says you wanted to talk. Sarah says a lot of things. Most of them turn out to be bullshit. Look, I know this situation is complicated. No, Derek, complicated is when your wife works late and forgets to call. Complicated is when your kid has a sleepover and you can't remember which friend's house. This situation, this is simple. You manipulated my wife into stealing our daughter's medical money so you could play big shot for your kids. Derek's mask slipped for just a second, and I saw something cold flash in his eyes. Then the smile was back. I think you're misunderstanding the situation here, Marcus. Sarah and I have a history. We share a connection that goes deeper than... You share jack shit. I leaned forward. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to pay back every penny Sarah spent on your kids. You're going to stop contacting her, and you're going to find another babysitter. Derek laughed. Actually laughed. Or what? You'll beat me up? Sarah told me about your anger management issues, about your time in jail. You really want to go back to prison and leave your sick daughter fatherless? The waitress appeared at our table. Can I get you gentlemen anything else? My friend here was just leaving, I said, not taking my eyes off Derek. Derek didn't move. Actually, I'll have a beer, whatever's on tap. He waited until the waitress walked away, then leaned back in his seat. Here's what's really going to happen, Marcus. Sarah is going to keep helping with my kids because she wants to, because they need her, because I give her something you can't. And what's that? Purpose, respect, a family that actually appreciates her. I felt something cold settle in my chest. The same feeling I used to get right before a firefight in Afghanistan. Is that right? Sarah and I understand each other. We have a history you can't compete with. And frankly, she deserves better than a blue-collar convict who can't even afford his daughter's medication. The waitress brought Derek's beer. He took a sip and continued talking like we were discussing the weather. I've offered Sarah a job at my company. Office manager, good salary, benefits, room for advancement. She'd be working closely with me, of course. Long hours, business trips. It would be a fresh start for her. And what about me? Derek shrugged. That's between you and Sarah. But I think we both know she's outgrown this marriage. I stood up and threw a 10 on the table. Thanks for the clarification, Derek. That's it? You're just going to walk away? I looked down at him, still sitting in his expensive suit with his expensive beer, thinking he'd won. Derek, let me explain something to you. I've been to war. I've been to prison. I've watched my daughter fight for her life more times than I can count. You think a conversation in a diner is going to intimidate me? Some of the confidence drained from his face. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave my wife alone. You're going to find someone else to manipulate and use, and you're going to pray that I never have a reason to come looking for you. Are you threatening me? No, Derek. I'm educating you. I leaned down so only he could hear me. Because if you ever put your hands on Sarah again, if you ever cost my daughter her medication again, if you ever contact my family again, I'll show you the difference between a threat and a promise. I walked out of the diner, leaving Derek with his beer and his thoughts. But as I drove home, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was far from over. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 3 years. I had research to do. Derek's company, Kane Brothers Construction, had an impressive online presence. Lots of flashy photos, testimonials from satisfied customers, news articles about major projects. But when you've spent time in military intelligence, you learn to look deeper than the surface. I started with public records, business licenses, building permits, tax liens. Most of it was routine, but a few things caught my attention. Kane Brothers had been cited twice in the last year for improper waste disposal. They'd also had several complaints filed with the Better Business Bureau for shoddy workmanship and project delays. More interesting were the lawsuits. 3 former employees had filed complaints alleging unpaid wages. 2 subcontractors were suing for breach of contract. And there was a nasty custody battle with Derek's actual ex-wife, not Sarah, but the mother of his children. Her name was Monica Hoffman, and according to the court documents, Derek owed her over $30,000 in back child support. I picked up my phone and dialed information. Yes, I need a number from Monica Hoffman in Riverside Heights. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in Monica's kitchen, drinking coffee and listening to her tell me about her marriage to Derek. He's a con man, she said bluntly. Always has been. He's got this way of making you feel like you're the most important person in the world, right up until you realize you're just another mark. Monica was thin and tired-looking, with prematurely gray hair and worry lines around her eyes. But there was strength in her voice, the kind that comes from surviving something terrible. How long were you married? 8 years. Best 8 years of his life. Worst 8 years of mine. She refilled my coffee cup. He started the construction company with money he borrowed from my parents, promised to pay them back as soon as the business took off. That was 10 years ago. Your parents never got their money back? My parents are dead, Mr. Kane. They died thinking their son-in-law was going to make them rich someday. I studied her face. Monica, can I ask you something? How would you feel if I told you Derek was manipulating another woman the same way he manipulated you? Her expression hardened. I'd feel sorry for her, and I'd want to help if I could. Even if helping might get Derek in trouble? Monica laughed, but there was no humor in it. Derek's been in trouble his whole life. He's just good at making other people pay for it. She got up and walked to a filing cabinet in the corner of the kitchen. Tell me about this woman he's targeting. Her name is Sarah. She's my wife. Monica stopped rifling through files and looked at me. Your wife is involved with Derek? He's got her convinced that she's helping his kids, made her spend our Christmas money on their presents. She thinks she's being a good stepmother." "Oh, honey." Monica's voice was full of sympathy. "Derek doesn't want a stepmother for his kids. He wants a meal ticket." She pulled out a thick folder and set it on the table between us. "These are copies of every document from our divorce proceedings. Financial records, custody agreements, police reports." "Police reports?" Derek has a temper, especially when things don't go his way. She opened the folder and showed me photographs of bruises on her arms, her face, her ribs. He never hit the kids, but he made sure I knew what would happen if I didn't cooperate. I felt that cold feeling in my chest again. "Monica, is Derek still threatening you?" "Not directly, but he has ways of making his feelings known. My car tires get slashed. My credit cards get canceled mysteriously. Little things that could be coincidences, but happen too often to actually be coincidences." "Why haven't you gone to the police?" "And tell them what? That my ex-husband is really good at making my life difficult without technically breaking any laws?" She closed the folder. "Derek's smart, Mr. Kane. He knows exactly how far he can push before it becomes a crime." I thought about Sarah's bruised wrist, about Derek's threats to cut off her visitation with his kids. "Monica, would you be willing to testify about Derek's behavior if it came to that?" "In court? Against Derek?" She was quiet for a long moment. "Mr. Kane, what exactly are you planning?" "I'm planning to give Derek a taste of his own medicine." Monica smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. "In that case, count me in." Over the next 2 weeks, I did something I'd never done in my adult life. I became a student of Derek Hoffman. I knew his schedule better than his secretary did. I knew he stopped at Starbucks every morning at 7:15, always ordered a venti dark roast with 2 sugars. I knew he played racquetball at the country club every Tuesday and Thursday evening. I knew he took his BMW to the same car wash every Saturday and always tipped the detail guys exactly 10%. Most importantly, I knew about the Riverside Municipal Complex project. Derek had been courting the city contract for months. A $50 million job to renovate the municipal building, the biggest project in Kane Brothers history. According to my research, Derek had already invested heavily in new equipment and hired additional crews, banking on getting the contract. The only problem was that the contract didn't exist. Well, it had existed. The city had planned to renovate the municipal complex, had even put out requests for proposals, but budget shortfalls had killed the project 3 months ago. The cancellation had been announced in a small article buried on page 6 of the local newspaper, the kind of thing most people would miss. But Derek hadn't missed it. He was too smart for that. Which meant Derek was running his own con, using the fake contract to secure loans and investments from people who trusted him, people like Sarah. I was thinking about this on Thursday evening, sitting in my truck outside the country club, when my phone rang. "Marcus, it's Sarah. I'm at the hospital with Emma. You need to get here now." Emma was unconscious when I got to the hospital, her small body looking fragile against the white sheets. Dr. Peterson met me in the hallway outside her room. "She's stable," he said before I could ask. "But this was a close call, Marcus. Her blood sugar was dangerously low when the paramedics brought her in." "How did this happen?" "She took her insulin this morning." "That's just it. She took too much insulin. Nearly double her normal dose." Dr. Peterson looked at his chart. "Has Emma been under any unusual stress lately? Changes in routine, family problems, anything like that?" I thought about the fighting, the separation, Sarah's absence from Emma's life over the past 2 weeks. "Yeah, there have been some family issues." Stress can affect how the body processes insulin. But Marcus, this looks like it might have been intentional. The words hit me like a physical blow. "Are you saying Emma tried to hurt herself?" I'm saying we found her insulin pen in her backpack at school, and she'd been giving herself extra injections throughout the day. When children Emma's age start self-medicating, it's usually because they're trying to get attention or control a situation they feel powerless over. I looked through the window at my daughter, so small and still. Can I talk to her? She's sleeping now, but you can sit with her. Marcus? Dr. Peterson put a hand on my shoulder. Emma's going to be fine, but you might want to consider family counseling. This kind of behavior is often a cry for help. Sarah was sitting beside Emma's bed when I walked into the room, holding our daughter's hand and crying quietly. The school called me, she said without looking up. They said Emma collapsed during lunch. I sat down in the chair on the other side of the bed. Dr. Peterson thinks she did this to herself. That's impossible. Emma would never. Sarah, look at me. She raised her head, and I saw the guilt written all over her face. Emma knows about Derek, doesn't she? Sarah nodded miserably. She heard us talking on the phone yesterday. She asked me if I was going to leave you for him. And what did you tell her? I told her I didn't know. We sat in silence for a while, watching Emma sleep. Finally, Sarah spoke again. Derek offered me a job, office manager at his company, good salary, benefits. I know, he told me. You know? Sarah looked surprised. Derek and I had a conversation a couple weeks ago. He made his intentions pretty clear. What kind of conversation? The kind where he explained that you deserved better than a blue-collar convict who couldn't afford his daughter's medication. Sarah's face crumpled. Marcus, I never said that. But you thought it... She was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes I think about what my life would have been like if I'd made different choices. If I'd stayed with Derek, if I'd had children of my own. And then I look at Emma, and I remember that some of the best things in life are the ones you don't plan for. Emma stirred in her sleep, making a small sound. Sarah squeezed her hand. I'm not taking the job, she said quietly. Why not? Because Derek doesn't love me. He just wants to use me. And because... She looked at me across Emma's bed. Because this is my family. You and Emma. This is where I belong. I wanted to believe her, but trust, once broken, doesn't heal overnight. Sarah, I need you to cut off all contact with Derek. No phone calls, no text messages, no meetings, nothing. What about his kids? They're expecting me for Christmas. His kids are not your responsibility. Emma is... Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face. I'll tell him tonight. No, you'll tell him right now, with me listening. She pulled out her phone with shaking hands and dialed Derek's number. He answered on the second ring. Sarah, sweetheart, I was just thinking about you. Derek, I can't see you anymore. I can't help with the kids. I need to focus on my own family. There was a pause. Sarah, what's brought this on? Did Marcus force you to call me? Sarah looked at me, and I nodded encouragingly. No one forced me, Derek. This is my decision. I see. Well, that's disappointing. The kids are going to be heartbroken. I'm sorry, but... And frankly, Sarah, I'm not sure this is what you really want. You seemed so happy when we were together. So fulfilled. Derek, please don't make this harder than it has to be. I'm not making anything hard, sweetheart. I'm just concerned about you, about us, about the future we could have together. I could hear the manipulation in his voice, the way he was trying to make Sarah doubt herself. I held out my hand for the phone. Actually, Derek, this is Marcus. Sarah's made her decision. Time for you to respect it. Ah, Marcus, still controlling your wife, I see. Still manipulating women, I see. Derek laughed. You know what, Marcus? You're right. Sarah's made her choice. She's choosing to stay with a man who can't provide for his family, instead of building a future with someone who can. That's your opinion. It's not an opinion, it's a fact, and Sarah knows it even if she's too scared to admit it. I was about to respond when Derek continued. But don't worry, Marcus. I'm a patient man. When Sarah realizes what she's giving up, when she sees what her life could have been, I'll still be here. The line went dead. Sarah was staring at me with wide eyes. He's not going to give up, is he? I looked down at Emma, so small and vulnerable in her hospital bed, then back at my wife. No, Sarah, he's not going to give up. So what do we do? I smiled, and it wasn't a nice smile. We give Derek exactly what he deserves. The next morning, while Sarah stayed at the hospital with Emma, I paid a visit to Jake Morrison, Derek's former business partner. Jake ran a small landscaping company out of a converted garage, and according to the court records, Derek had screwed him out of $40,000 3 years ago. Derek Hoffman? Jake spit into the dirt when I mentioned the name. That son of a bitch nearly put me out of business. Jake was a big man, the kind who looked like he could uproot trees with his bare hands. His face was weathered from years of outdoor work, and his handshake could crack walnuts. Tell me what happened. We were partners for 2 years. I handled the landscaping side of construction projects. He handled the building. Everything was going great until Derek decided he wanted to cut me out. How'd he do it? Started underbidding my work on joint projects. Told clients I was unreliable, that my crews were sloppy. Then he offered to buy out my share of the partnership for half what it was worth. And you said no. Damn right I said no. So Derek started playing dirty. Had the city inspect my equipment, claimed it wasn't up to code. Filed complaints with the licensing board, said I wasn't properly insured. Made it impossible for me to get work. Jake led me over to a workbench covered with invoices and receipts. Eventually, I had to sell just to keep from going bankrupt. Derek bought my equipment and client list for pennies on the dollar. You ever think about getting even? Jake gave me a sharp look. You wearing a wire cane? Do I look like a cop to you? No, you look like a man with a grievance against Derek Hoffman, which makes 2 of us. I explained the situation with Sarah and Emma about Derek's manipulation and threats. Jake listened without interrupting, his expression getting darker with each detail. That bastard, he said when I finished. He's still running the same cons, just with different victims. Jake, what would you say if I told you I had a way to shut Derek down permanently? I'd say I'm listening. I pulled out a folder I'd prepared, filled with printouts from Derek's website and business filings. Derek's been telling investors that he's got the contract for the Riverside Municipal Complex renovation. Yeah, so? That's a huge project. $50 million easy. Except the project was canceled 3 months ago. Budget cuts. Jake's eyes widened. Are you sure? I showed him the newspaper clipping. Page 6, buried under the sports scores. Most people missed it. But Derek's been securing loans based on that contract. He bought new equipment, hired additional crews. Exactly. Which means Derek's running a scam. And when his investors find out, I let the sentence hang. Jake smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. What do you need from me? I need you to make some phone calls. You still have contacts in the construction business? A few. Good. Because Derek's about to learn what it feels like when someone plays by his rules. Setting the trap took 2 weeks of careful preparation. The first step was making sure Derek felt confident and secure, so I had Sarah maintain minimal contact, just enough to keep him thinking he still had a chance. Meanwhile, Jake reached out to his contacts in the construction industry. Word started spreading that Derek was in financial trouble, that Kane Brothers might not be as solid as it appeared. Rumors about unpaid subcontractors, questionable business practices, possible fraud. The beauty of rumors in a small industry is that they take on a life of their own. People started asking questions. Banks started reviewing loan applications more carefully. Potential clients started requesting additional documentation. But the real genius of the plan was the fake inspection. I'd learned from Monica that Derek was paranoid about city inspectors, probably because he cut corners whenever he thought he could get away with it. So when Inspector Williams from the city's Building and Safety Department called to schedule a surprise audit of Derek's current projects, Derek panicked. Of course, there was no Inspector Williams. There was just me, wearing a borrowed city uniform and carrying a clipboard full of official-looking forms. I showed up at Derek's biggest job site on a Thursday morning, introduced myself to the foreman, and started asking pointed questions about building codes and safety regulations. Nothing threatening, just the kind of routine inspection that honest contractors handle without breaking a sweat. Derek wasn't honest. Within an hour, I'd documented enough code violations to shut down the project for weeks. Improper electrical work, substandard materials, workers without proper safety equipment. The kind of corners Derek cut to maximize profits. "Who authorized this inspection?" Derek demanded when he arrived at the site. "This is a routine audit, Mr. Hoffman. We received some concerns about safety practices." "What kind of concerns? Who filed a complaint?" I consulted my clipboard. "I'm not at liberty to discuss ongoing investigations, but I can tell you that this project is shut down pending corrections to the violations I've documented." Derek's face turned red. "You can't shut down my project. I have deadlines, contracts." "Mr. Hoffman, you have workers operating without proper fall protection equipment. You have electrical systems that don't meet current code requirements. This site is a lawsuit waiting to happen." "How long until I can get back to work?" "That depends on how quickly you can address the violations. Could be days, could be weeks." Derek stormed off, cursing under his breath. I finished my inspection, left him with a thick stack of violation notices, and drove away in my borrowed city truck. Phase 1 complete. The fake inspection was just the beginning. Over the next week, Derek's world started falling apart in carefully orchestrated ways. His bank called to review his line of credit, concerned about irregularities in his loan applications. A former employee filed a complaint with the labor board about unpaid overtime. The Better Business Bureau received several new complaints about shoddy workmanship. And then there was the anonymous tip to the IRS about possible tax evasion. I watched it all unfold from a distance, like a chess master moving pieces on a board. Derek scrambled to handle each new crisis, never realizing they were all connected. The pressure started showing. Sarah reported that Derek's text messages became increasingly desperate. "He wants to meet tonight," she told me over dinner. "Says he has something important to discuss." "About what?" "He wouldn't say, but Marcus." She looked worried. He sounded different, scared maybe. Emma poked at her mashed potatoes. "Are you and Daddy going to fight again?" "No, sweetheart," Sarah said quickly. "Daddy and I aren't fighting anymore." "What about Derek? Is he going to keep bothering us?" I reached over and ruffled Emma's hair. "Derek's not going to bother us much longer, kiddo." After dinner, I walked Sarah to her car. "I want you to meet with Derek tonight." "What? Marcus, no, I told you I was done with him." "This isn't about reconciliation, Sarah. This is about finishing what he started." I explained what I wanted her to do, how the conversation should go. Sarah listened with growing amazement. "Marcus, that's brilliant, and completely ruthless." "Derek chose the game, Sarah. I'm just playing by his rules." "What if he gets violent? What if he realizes what you're doing?" I pulled out my phone and showed her the app I'd installed. "You'll be wearing a wire. I'll be listening to everything, and I'll be close enough to intervene if necessary." Sarah was quiet for a moment. This could really destroy him. Yes, it could. Good. The restaurant Derek chose was upscale, the kind of place with cloth napkins and wine lists longer than most novels. I sat in my truck in the parking lot, listening through earbuds as Sarah walked inside. "Table for Derek Hoffman," she told the hostess. "Right this way, ma'am." I heard chairs scraping, murmured greetings, the rustle of Sarah sitting down. "You look beautiful," Derek's voice came through clearly. "I've missed you." "Derek, you said this was important." "It is important, Sarah. I need your help." "What kind of help?" "I'm having some cash flow problems. Temporary, but significant. I need to borrow some money to cover payroll until the municipal contract comes through." Even through the earpiece, I could hear the desperation in Derek's voice. Perfect. "How much money?" Sarah asked. $50,000. I know it's a lot, but $50,000? Derek, I don't have that kind of money. But Marcus does. He owns his house outright, doesn't he? You could take out a home equity loan. I clenched my fists in the truck. The bastard was trying to get Sarah to mortgage our house. "Derek, I can't ask Marcus to risk our home for your business problems." "Sarah, please. You don't understand. If I can't make payroll, I'll lose everything. The business, the house, my kids." "What about the municipal contract? Can't you get an advance?" There was a long pause. When Derek spoke again, his voice was strained. "The municipal contract. There have been some delays. Political issues." "What kind of delays?" "Sarah, does it matter? The point is, I need help now, and you're the only person I can turn to." This was the moment of truth. Sarah took a deep breath. "Derek, I care about you. I care about your kids, but I won't risk my family's financial security for a business loan." "Your family?" Derek's voice turned cold. "Sarah, what family? You mean the stepdaughter who tried to kill herself because you were spending time with my children? The husband who treats you like property?" "Emma didn't try to kill herself because of me." "Didn't she? A 7-year-old doesn't accidentally overdose on insulin, Sarah. She was sending you a message." "You're wrong." "Am I? Tell me, Sarah, when's the last time Marcus made you feel valued? When's the last time he treated you like an equal partner instead of a domestic servant?" I had to give Derek credit. He knew exactly which buttons to push. But Sarah was ready for him. "You want to know when Marcus made me feel valued? When he spent 3 months working double shifts to save money for Emma's medication. When he sat by her hospital bed for 2 days straight because he was afraid to leave her alone. When he forgave me for betraying our family because he understood that I was being manipulated." "Manipulated?" Derek laughed. "Sarah, no one manipulated you. You made a choice. You chose to help children who needed you instead of enabling Marcus's martyrdom complex. I chose to steal from my own daughter to buy presents for children who already had everything they needed. Those children love you, Sarah. They need you in their lives. No, Derek, you need me in their lives. Because it's easier to manipulate an ex-wife than it is to actually be a good father." The silence stretched for several seconds. When Derek spoke again, his voice was deadly quiet. "You're making a mistake, Sarah. The only mistake I made was trusting you." "You think Marcus is some kind of hero? You think he's going to take care of you when his daughter's medical bills bankrupt your family? You think he's going to stick around when the going gets tough?" "I think Marcus loves me enough to forgive me for being an idiot, which is more than I can say for you." I heard a chair scrape, footsteps, the sound of Sarah walking away. "Sarah, wait!" More footsteps, rapid now. Derek was following her. "Sarah, I'm warning you. If you walk away from me, you'll regret it." That was my cue. I got out of the truck and headed for the restaurant entrance. I found them in the parking lot. Derek had grabbed Sarah's arm and was pulling her toward his BMW. "Let go of my wife!" Derek spun around, his face flushed with anger. "This is none of your business, Kane." Actually, it became my business the moment you put your hands on her. Derek released Sarah's arm, but didn't back down. You want to know what your business is? Your business is keeping your wife in line. Your business is teaching her some loyalty. Funny thing about loyalty, Derek, it has to be earned. I earned Sarah's loyalty. I gave her purpose, respect, a chance to be part of something meaningful. You gave her bruises and debts and a front row seat to your pathological need for control. Derek's face darkened. You think you know me? You think you understand what I'm capable of? Actually, Derek, I know exactly what you're capable of. I know about Monica's bruises. I know about the unpaid subcontractors. I know about the municipal contract that doesn't exist. Derek went very still. What did you say? The Riverside Municipal Complex renovation, Derek. The $50 million contract you've been using to secure loans and investments. The project that was canceled 3 months ago. All the color drained from Derek's face. That's right, Derek. I know about your little scam. And unless you want the FBI to know about it too, you're going to stay away from my family. Derek looked back and forth between Sarah and me, his mind racing. Finally, he stepped back. You have no idea what you're dealing with, Kane. Actually, I'm dealing with a 2-bit con man who's run out of tricks. Derek got in his BMW and drove away without another word. Sarah leaned against me, shaking. Is it over? Not yet, I said, but it's about to be. The call came 2 days later, just as I was getting home from work. Marcus, this is Monica Hoffman. I think you need to know something about Derek. What's going on, Monica? He came by my house last night. He was different, desperate. He offered me money to convince you and Sarah to leave him alone. How much money? $20,000, cash. Monica's voice was shaky. Marcus, Derek doesn't have $20,000 in cash unless he's doing something illegal. I thought about Derek's recent financial problems, the pressure I'd been applying, the municipal contract scam. Monica, where do you think he got the money? I don't know, but he mentioned something about a storage unit. Said he had assets that weren't tied to the business. Assets in a storage unit that Derek was willing to liquidate for $20,000 in cash. Monica, did Derek say anything else? Anything about what he was planning to do? He said if I didn't help him, he was going to disappear. Take the kids and start over somewhere else. My blood ran cold. He's planning to run. That's what I'm afraid of. Marcus, if Derek takes those kids and leaves town, I'll never see them again. I was already reaching for my car keys. Monica, where does Derek keep this storage unit? I don't know, but his business files might have the information. He keeps everything in his office at the construction yard. Can you get me into that office? I still have a key from when we were married. He never asked for it back. 20 minutes later, Monica and I were standing outside Kane Brothers Construction's main office. The building was dark, the parking lot empty except for a few pieces of heavy equipment. Are you sure about this? Monica asked as she unlocked the front door. I'm sure Derek's planning something that's going to hurt his kids and my family. That's all I need to know. Derek's office was exactly what I expected. Expensive furniture, awards on the walls, photographs of himself with local politicians and business leaders. But the desk told a different story. Bills marked past due, loan documents with highlighted late fees, notices from suppliers demanding payment. I started going through file cabinets while Monica kept watch at the window. Find anything? She whispered. Bank statements mostly. Derek's been juggling a lot of debt. I pulled out a folder marked Storage. Here we go. The folder contained rental agreements for 3 different storage units around town. But one stood out. A climate-controlled unit at Riverside Storage, paid for with cash, registered under an alias. Marcus, we need to go. I see headlights. We locked up the office and were back in my truck before Derek's BMW pulled into the parking lot. I watched him get out and walk quickly to the building, fumbling with his keys. "He's checking to see if anyone was here," Monica said, "which means he's got something to hide in that storage unit." "What do we do now?" I started the truck. "Now we go see what Derek's been keeping in his private storage unit." Riverside Storage was one of those sprawling complexes with hundreds of identical metal doors, protected by a chain-link fence and security cameras that probably hadn't worked since the Clinton administration. Unit 247 was in the back corner, away from the main road and security lights. I parked my truck out of sight and walked the perimeter, looking for the best approach. "This is breaking and entering," Monica said nervously. "No, this is gathering evidence of fraud and tax evasion. There's a difference." "Will the police see it that way?" "The police won't have to see it at all if we're careful." The lock on Unit 247 was expensive, military grade, the kind of lock someone uses when they really don't want people seeing what's inside. Fortunately, the Marines had taught me a few things about getting through locked doors. The storage unit was packed floor to ceiling with boxes, filing cabinets, and computer equipment. But what caught my attention were the stacks of cash bundled with rubber bands. "Jesus," Monica whispered. "How much money is that?" I did a quick count. Couple $100,000 at least. Where did Derek get this kind of cash? I started going through the boxes. Financial records, contracts, correspondence with clients. And then I found the real smoking gun. Bank statements showing systematic embezzlement from client accounts over the past 2 years. "Derek's been stealing from his customers," I told Monica. "Taking deposits for projects, then using the money for other expenses. Classic pyramid scheme." "That's why he needed the municipal contract. He was planning to use that money to pay back what he stole." "Except the municipal contract doesn't exist." Monica sank down onto a box, looking overwhelmed. "So what happens now? Do we call the police?" I thought about Sarah, about Emma, about Derek's threats to disappear with his kids. "No, we're going to give Derek a choice." I pulled out my phone and started taking pictures. Financial records, bank statements, stacks of cash. Enough evidence to put Derek away for a long time. "Marcus, what are you planning?" "I'm planning to make Derek an offer he can't refuse." I called Derek the next morning and asked him to meet me at the construction site where I'd conducted my fake inspection. Neutral territory, but with enough privacy for the kind of conversation we needed to have. Derek was already there when I arrived, pacing back and forth like a caged animal. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. "What do you want, Kane?" I pulled out my phone and showed him one of the photos I'd taken at the storage unit. Derek's face went white. "You broke into my storage unit." "I investigated a suspected crime. There's a difference." "You had no right." "Derek, let's skip the outrage and get to the point. I know about the embezzlement. I know about the fake municipal contract. I know about the tax evasion and the unpaid workers and the systematic fraud you've been running for the past 2 years. Derek sat down heavily on a stack of lumber. "What do you want?" "I want you to disappear." "What?" "I want you to liquidate everything. Pay back everyone you owe and get out of town, permanently." "I can't do that. My business, my kids." "Your business is a criminal enterprise, Derek. Your kids deserve better than a father who's going to spend the next decade in federal prison." Derek was quiet for a long time, staring at the ground. Finally, he looked up at me. "What about the evidence you collected?" "If you do what I'm asking, the evidence disappears. If you don't..." I shrugged. "I turn it over to the FBI and let them sort it out. You're asking me to give up everything." "I'm giving you a chance to avoid prison. Take it." Derek stood up and walked to the edge of the construction site, looking out at the city beyond. "You really think you've won, don't you?" "I think I've protected my family from a predator, That's all I ever wanted." "Your family?" Derek laughed bitterly. "You mean your wife who was ready to leave you for me? Your stepdaughter who tried to kill herself rather than live in your dysfunctional household? Derek, you've got 48 hours. Use them wisely." I walked back to my truck, leaving Derek standing alone at the construction site. But as I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't over. Derek's response came that evening in the form of a text message to Sarah. "Meet me at the old steel mill. Come alone. If you don't, Marcus will regret it." Sarah showed me the message with shaking hands. "Marcus, he's lost it. He's completely unhinged." "Sarah, you're not going anywhere near Derek." "But what if he really hurts you? What if he's armed?" I thought about Derek's desperation, his threats, the way he'd looked at the construction site like a man with nothing left to lose. "Call the police." "And tell them what? That my ex-husband sent me a cryptic text message?" Sarah was right. The police wouldn't do anything based on a vague threat, but I had a feeling Derek was counting on that. "Okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to text Derek back and agree to meet him. But you're not going alone." "Marcus, no, it's too dangerous." "Sarah, Derek's backed into a corner. Cornered animals are unpredictable, but they're also stupid." I explained my plan. Sarah would drive to the steel mill but park a quarter-mile away. I would already be in position, waiting. Derek would think he had the advantage, but he'd be walking into a trap. "What if something goes wrong?" Sarah asked. "Nothing's going to go wrong. Derek's a con man, not a killer. He'll try to bluff his way out of this, and when that doesn't work, he'll fold." An hour later, I was crouched behind a pile of scrap metal in the abandoned section of the steel mill, watching Derek pace back and forth near the old furnaces. He was alone, unarmed as far as I could tell, but clearly agitated. My earpiece crackled. "I'm here," Sarah's voice whispered. "I can see him from the parking area." "Stay where you are until I give you the all-clear." Derek's phone rang. He answered it immediately. "Sarah, where are you?" "I'm here, Derek, but before I come any closer, I need to know what this is about." "It's about choices, Sarah. It's about loyalty. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice for the people you love." "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about your husband's ultimatum. Did he tell you what he's demanding?" There was a pause. "Derek, I don't know what you mean." "Marcus wants me to disappear, Sarah. Leave town, give up my business, abandon my children. And if I don't, he's going to destroy me." "Maybe you should listen to him." Derek's voice turned cold. "I don't think you understand the situation, Sarah. Your husband has evidence that could send me to prison, but I have something that could destroy him too." My blood ran cold. What did Derek think he had on me? "I know about Marcus's time in prison, Sarah. I know why he was really there. And I know he's been lying to you about it. Derek, I know about Marcus's conviction. He told me everything." "Did he tell you that he nearly killed a man? Did he tell you that the only reason he got out after 6 months was because his victim was too scared to testify?" I felt something twist in my stomach. Derek had done his homework. "Did he tell you that the man he assaulted was just trying to protect his girlfriend from Marcus's advances? Did he tell you that he has a history of violence against women?" "That's not true," Sarah said, but I could hear the doubt in her voice. "Isn't it? Sarah, think about how he's handled this situation, the threats, the stalking, the breaking into my property. Does that sound like the behavior of a stable man?" "Derek, stop." "I'm not the monster here, Sarah. Marcus is. And if you don't convince him to back off, I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man you married." That was enough. I stepped out from behind the scrap metal, my hands empty and visible. "Hello, Derek." Derek spun around, his face a mixture of fear and fury. "I told Sarah to come alone." "Sarah's not coming, Derek. She's safe. It's just you and me now." "You're making a mistake, Kane." The only mistake I made was giving you 48 hours instead of 48 minutes. Derek backed towards the old furnaces, his eyes darting around looking for an escape route. You think you're so smart. You think you've got it all figured out? I think you're a coward who preys on vulnerable women. I think you're a fraud who steals from honest people. And I think you're about to learn what happens when you threaten my family. Your family? Derek laughed. You mean the family you've been lying to? Sarah doesn't know the real reason you went to prison, does she? Sarah knows everything she needs to know. Does she know that you put a man in the hospital because he had the audacity to flirt with your girlfriend? Does she know that you have a pattern of violence that goes back to your military service? I took a step closer. Derek, you're grasping at straws. Am I? Tell me, Marcus. What happened in Afghanistan? How many people did you kill? How many innocent civilians got caught in your crossfire? Another step closer. Derek was almost backed against the furnace now. You want to know what happened in Afghanistan, Derek? I learned the difference between necessary violence and gratuitous cruelty. You practice the latter. I specialize in the former. Derek's hand moved toward his jacket pocket. Stay back, Kane. I'm warning you. Derek, whatever you think you have in that pocket, I guarantee it's not going to help you. He pulled out a small revolver, holding it with shaking hands. I said stay back! I stopped moving but didn't retreat. Derek, you're not a killer. You're a con man. There's a difference. Maybe I'm tired of being a con man. Maybe it's time to try something more direct. You shoot me, Derek, and you go from tax evasion to murder. That's life in prison instead of 5 to 10. You sure you want to make that trade? Derek's hand was shaking so badly he could barely keep the gun pointed in my direction. You destroyed my life, Kane. You took everything from me. I gave you a choice, Derek. You chose wrong. I chose to fight back. I chose not to let some blue-collar thug dictate my future. And how's that working out for you? Derek's face crumpled. The gun dropped to his side. I just wanted to matter, Kane. I wanted to be important to someone. Derek, you were important to your kids. You threw that away when you decided to become a criminal. I never meant for it to go this far. The embezzlement, the fraud, it started small. Just a little here and there to cover expenses. But then it snowballed, and I couldn't stop. You could have stopped, Derek. You chose not to. Derek looked down at the gun in his hand like he was surprised to find it there. What happens now? Now you give me the gun, and we call the police. You cooperate with the investigation, make restitution to your victims, and take whatever sentence they give you like a man. And if I don't? If you don't, Derek, then you and I finish this conversation the way conversations between predators and protectors always finish. Derek stared at me for a long moment, then slowly held out the gun. I took it carefully and ejected the bullets. It wasn't even loaded, Derek said with a bitter laugh. I couldn't even commit to threatening you properly. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. This is Marcus Kane. I need police at the abandoned section of Riverside Steel Mill. I have a suspect in custody for embezzlement and fraud. As we waited for the police, Derek sat down heavily on a piece of machinery. You know what the worst part is, Kane? Sarah really did love me once, before I became this. Derek, Sarah never loved you. She loved the man you pretended to be. Same thing, isn't it? No, Derek, it's not the same thing at all. 6 months later, Derek Hoffman was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for embezzlement, fraud, and tax evasion. He made full restitution to his victims using the money from his storage unit, and his construction company was liquidated to pay outstanding debts. Monica got full custody of Derek's children and moved to Oregon to start fresh. Before she left, She stopped by our house to thank me. I know this wasn't easy for you, she said. Standing up to Derek, I mean. He can be very convincing when he wants to be. Derek's problem was that he never learned the difference between being convincing and being right. And what's the difference? Being right doesn't require an audience. Sarah and I went to counseling for 3 months, working through the trust issues and communication problems that had made Derek's manipulation possible in the first place. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Do you think we would have made it if Derek hadn't come along? Sarah asked during one session. I think Derek showed us problems that were already there, I replied. If it hadn't been him, it would have been something else eventually. And now? Now we know what we're capable of surviving. Emma's diabetes was under control, her medication paid for with the reward money I received for exposing Derek's fraud. She was back to being a normal 7-year-old, more interested in cartoons than her parents' relationship drama. Daddy, why did Derek want to hurt our family? She asked one evening while I was reading her a bedtime story. Sometimes people hurt others because they're hurting inside, Emma. Derek was very sad and angry, and he didn't know how to deal with those feelings in a healthy way. Is he better now? He's learning how to be better. It takes time. Will he come back? No, sweetheart. Derek won't be coming back. Emma nodded and settled into her pillow. Good. I like our family just the way it is. As I turned off her bedroom light, I reflected on the past year. The betrayal, the manipulation, the systematic destruction of a man who had thought he could prey on my family with impunity. People ask me sometimes if I feel guilty about what happened to Derek, if I think I went too far, if I should have tried to help him instead of destroying him. Here's what I tell them. Derek Hoffman spent years perfecting the art of taking advantage of good people's compassion. He built his entire life around identifying vulnerable women and exploiting their desire to be needed. He was a predator, plain and simple. And predators don't stop hunting because you ask them nicely. Sometimes the only way to protect the people you love is to make the threat disappear completely. Sometimes the only language bullies understand is overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. I didn't destroy Derek Hoffman. Derek destroyed himself through years of increasingly desperate and criminal behavior. I just made sure he faced the consequences of his choices before he could hurt anyone else. Sarah and I are stronger now than we were before Derek came into our lives. We communicate better, trust more deeply, and appreciate what we have instead of wondering what we might be missing. Emma is healthy and happy, surrounded by people who love her unconditionally and would do anything to protect her. And Derek? Derek is learning what it means to face the consequences of his actions without being able to manipulate or charm his way out of them. Some people would call that justice. I call it a Christmas gift that keeps on giving. Because the best present you can give yourself isn't something you buy in a store. It's not something you wrap with paper and ribbon. The best present you can give yourself is the knowledge that you'll do whatever it takes to protect the people who matter most. Even if that means becoming someone you never thought you could be. Even if that means crossing lines you never thought you'd cross. Even if that means looking at yourself in the mirror and accepting that sometimes good people have to do hard things to keep bad people from winning. I gave myself the gift of freedom that Christmas. Freedom from manipulation, from fear, from the toxic influence of someone who saw my family as nothing more than a means to an end. And it was the best Christmas present I ever received.